All right, baby, we're live. We'll only take a very brief second this evening to let it breathe while we connect Facebook. But oh my goodness, do we have a lot to talk about? And we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast, the aftermath episode. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, with me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. And Zack, no more wondering, no more agonizing, no more speculation. We know exactly who the Denver Broncos drafted. They ended up going into the draft, Zack, with 7 selections. They came out of it with 7 selections, although it wasn't always in the same exact spots. But first things first, dude, what's your grade for this 2026 Broncos draft class?
Well, it's a little higher than Mel Kiper's grade. I think I'm going to grab that in the near term future about what he said about the Broncos draft. He gave them a C plus. I don't necessarily agree. I think he was a little harsh, Chad, and didn't look at the Broncos' particular roster construction, as these national analysts tend not to do. I'm a little more lenient. I give them somewhere in the B range, either a B, potentially a B plus. I don't think it was an A draft, Chad. Honestly, I think they could have stayed put at 62 and taken someone maybe more high caliber. But I still like the defensive lineman they got. I think Jonah Coleman was overall their best pick. The fact that he landed in their laps at that spot was pretty remarkable. And they filled needs elsewhere. I like the Joe Lee pick for what he could bring to the table as a pass catcher. It's really all for the future. This is a team in win now mode, and they drafted like a team in win now mode. So yeah, I'd say B or B plus.
I gave it an A, and I'll tell you why I gave it an A. I agree with you. And this is actually, I think, something Kuiper wrote. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zack, but there's no just like blow me away wow pick in this draft, right? Like that I understand. All right. However, the reason I gave this class overall 7 full selections an A is they just found value. Pick after pick
Yep,
after pick was just
absolutely.
really good value. Now, there is one selection you could nitpick and say, oh, I don't know, Tyler Onyedim. I'm not so sure that was a value pick because most of the big public boards and consensus had him, Zack, in the 80s, and he ended up getting drafted at 66. So just like RJ Harvey last year, Pat Bryant, Bo Nix in 2024, some people outside the building will perceive that as a grave reach. However, I mean, Eric knew a lot about this guy before. He was stoked on the pick when it came in. You were with us there, Zack, when it hit.
Yep.
And the bottom line is, were there some sexier players potentially they could have gotten if they would have stayed a few more picks ahead? Maybe, I don't know. They honestly missed out on a run of guys right before they went on the clock at 62, but I
Right.
digress. The thing about Onyedim is that he's NFL ready and he's still got some ceiling. So I don't agonize too much over the fact that he might have been 20 picks ahead, because if you're the Broncos sitting there at 66 and you like this guy and he's your best guy on the board, and you look and you go, dat gum, we're not on the board again. We're not on the clock again until pick 108. Yeah, we could always maybe trade back, but let's just not, let's just not overthink this. We're taking Tyler Onyedim. So otherwise, you go across the board. Last thing here, Zack, and I'm serving it back
Yep.
to you. Jonah Coleman, he was a 3rd round pick they got in the 4th, maybe even a 2nd. When he was doing his daydreaming stuff, he said he stood up at the podium and kind of called his shot, Zack, saying, with the 62nd overall pick, the Denver Broncos select Jonah Coleman, which is so rad. But anyway, they get him in the 4th round. They get Justin Jolie in the 5th round. He was a 3rd round caliber guy. And there's several other we could talk about as the night goes on. So that's why I gave it an A.
Yeah, we don't have to agree on grades, but you made a really good point about the value. It seemed like they got everyone, Chad, a round later than what was projected. We were talking about Jonah Coleman potentially as pick number 62. That was
Yeah,
an option for
totally.
them. To get him where they got him was remarkable value, to your point. So, again, we can nitpick on the grade. I think George Payton and Sean Payton let the board come to them. And like I said on Friday night when they made their pick, they're kind of just playing with their food. They don't really need anyone. They don't have any glaring holes. They feel like they can win tomorrow as Super Bowl, and they kind of drafted as such. So I have no problem with it.
Let's get to the chat for a second. We got a lot to talk about tonight, gang. But Sue Gibson, a dear member for 8 months, says, what an excellent draft. Eric was awesome. Yeah, I give Eric a lot of credit every year. We do on this show because as you guys who are in those live streams with us could attest to, he does the work. Like, he's not a guy that kind of goes and looks up, Zack, top 60 players and then kind of gets the general vibe on him so he's got something to talk about on a podcast. He goes out and actually does the work, scouts these guys, talks to coaches, talks to other people. So I'm proud of him. And in this particular draft, for whatever reason, Zach, sometimes some drafts, we've been doing this a long time, over 10 years. Some drafts are better than others, but this particular draft, Zach, Eric was, I mean, a lot of his guys that he was urging the Broncos to get, they took.
Yeah, Eric is a rock star, Sue. Absolutely. I even said that when they made the Anya Deem pick. I said, I'll defer to Eric here. You know, he sounds like a good player for the system, but I wasn't as familiar as Eric was. But that's what Eric's thing is, and I give him a lot of credit for it. And if you talk to him in real life, too, he just can't help himself but talk about the draft and the draft process. And he's a really good guy, man. And I echo what you said, Chad. He did a bang up job.
Eric Holt jumping in. What's up, big dog? Great to have you with us tonight. He says, hey,
Thank you,
guys.
Eric.
Really pleased with the draft. Of course, Jalen Waddle was our first round pick. That's a great mindset. With the defensive tackle from A&M, Onyedim, whom I think will compete for starter reps. I love Jonah Coleman, a mini bowling ball. Jolie. Let's remember, it's not Jolly. I used to think when I was watching him for 3 days at the Senior Bowl, looking at the roster, I thought it was Jolly. It's Jolie. For what it's worth, that's how you say it. But he says Jolie will be a star, Zach.
At least it's not Albert Okuwebunam. That's a little easier to pronounce. I think we'll get that right around these parts. Thank you, Eric, for that. And I agree. He will compete just because they need players at the position. I hope Savion Jones, a former third-round pick, second year now, can really blossom into that role. They like Uzurike as well. I don't have a problem with it, although he was a little overdrafted. Coleman, again, I'll echo, was their best pick by far. And I think it's not long from now, Chad. It might not be week 1, but it's not long that Coleman's going to be RB1 in the Broncos backfield.
We got also Shannon Mills jumping in from the
Shannon,
top
thank
row
you.
with a super mega generous super chat. We love you, Shannon. You know this. Hope all is well for you. Let's see what she has to say. She says, good evening, Chad, Zach, Scott, and MHH fam. Scott is not with us tonight. He's enjoying a concert. He's taking in a live show of rock music with probably some earplugs, but he'll be bouncing his head. She says, I think this was a great draft. The Broncos have new weapons, and depth. I would give this draft an A-. Thank you all for the great content during the draft season. Well, thank you again, Shannon. And honestly, this is no lie. We wouldn't be able to do it without support from all of you and our superstars and our members. So, we you guys call, so to speak, we answer. Maybe it's the other way around. We call, you answer. Either way, we're in this together. And we understand that and appreciate you so much.
Yeah, well said. We provide the absolution around these parts, Shannon, and we couldn't do it without your support, everyone's support. Thank you so much for that. I don't agree necessarily, but again, the grade is more nitpicky and subjective. I think the objective view is the Broncos roster did get better. They filled whatever holes they had to fill, and they didn't overpay. They didn't spend future picks, Chad. They didn't trade any players. I'm glad that Riley Moss wasn't traded. I'm glad these other players like Brandon Jones, perhaps, he was a candidate because he's in a contract year. He wasn't traded as well. The Broncos really are just letting the board fall to them and letting the band stay together for as long as they can. And I like that. Thank you, Shannon.
Much love and respect, Shannon. Thank you for giving us your grade too. Always interesting. We love hearing that. Roy says it was a D and he doesn't have any idea how I came up with my grade. Well, let me tell you something. It's
D is harsh.
Kind of a common practice, not a practice, penchant for people who cover the team, all right, to not go too over the top with draft grades. And if you go back and look, most of the time, I'm not. In fact, Zach, I can't think of a draft in recent memory. Maybe even then, Bo Nix, I was stoked for Bo Nix, but the draft itself, I can't think of a draft where it ended and I felt as confident and just overall stoked with each and every pick as this draft. It's been a long time. And time will tell who's right, who's wrong, right? Like nobody has a crystal ball. But again, for me, what it really comes down to is the value they got at each and every turn. And you can, again, pick nits on the Onyedim pick in round 3, blah, blah, blah. But I just think we can go through them, and we should go through each one of them tonight, guys, and talk about why and how these were good picks. But yeah, Roy, friends can disagree, right?
I thought you were going to say I never felt worse. I can't remember a time I felt worse after a Broncos draft. I'm thinking 2017 was pretty bad, but we didn't know that in hindsight. Yeah, I don't know.
True.
D, you said gave it a D or whatever. That's pretty harsh. Even Mel Kiper, who was really harsh on the Broncos, in my opinion, gave them a C plus. I don't know. I disagree heavily with that. I think they filled whatever holes they had to fill, and they got tremendous value, to Chad's point earlier.
Hey, Big Earn, it's all good, buddy. I appreciate you being with us. Broncos Country Only says, I'm not a member, but I still like your podcast. Big Earn, just so you know, I've said it before, but it's coming soon. We started doing it on the live streams. We went for like an hour and then cut the Facebook feed. For reasons that are not your fault or our fault, we're not going to be streaming to Facebook for much longer. Facebook is basically telling pages like us they don't want us to live stream. So we're not going to be for much longer to Facebook, but we'll always do so on YouTube. So Big Earn, good to have you with us tonight. Eric Holt with a second super Zach says, I also like the kid from Boise State, the offensive guard / tackle, Cage Casey, Denver's second, 4th round pick, 111, will be the heir apparent, he thinks, Zach, for Garrett Bowles. My only wish, he says, was us taking Red instead of Lawson, overall a B plus. So here's the irony. Like for a second, Zach, I was ready to like stand on the podcast live stream yesterday and be like, okay, for the first time since 2017, the Broncos have drafted an offensive tackle. Dang it. They're playing him at guard. He's not a true left tackle. Doesn't mean he won't get an opportunity, Zach, to play some left tackle, etc. But apparently the vision for him is inside.
I'm just happy, to your point, that they actually drafted an offensive lineman, whether he's a tackle or a guard. And I think you're right. He's the heir apparent, Eric, here to Ben Powers, I think, not Garrett Bowles. I don't know what the plan is for the post-Garrett Bowles life. I don't know if it's someone like Frank Crum or Palcho. But I think they're going to put Casey inside. And that's good because if you remember earlier this offseason, we were assuming – not even wondering, assuming that Ben Powers was going to be cut or at least restructured. The Broncos did nothing with him. I think they're giving him one more shot, Chad, at his current salary to see what he's got. And if he doesn't hold up to it, they're going to jettison him and maybe insert Casey. And this doesn't also bode well for Nick Gargiulo, who's coming back from that injury. He was supposed to be the heir apparent initially.
Dude, way to nail the pronunciation on a tricky name. I still have this written so I don't forget how to pronounce his name. It's right on my monitor so that when his name comes up, the little tricks of the trade so that we get things right. Lady D jumping in off the top rope.
Dana.
So good to see so many of you tonight, our dear members and our Mount Rushmore superstars right at the top. This woman right here, the Lady D. She says, hi, Chad and Zach. Eric was on point. At first, I wasn't happy. This is true. I can confirm we were texting back and forth. She was a little bummed on the trade back in round 2, Zach. And then, because if you think about it, before I finish reading this, Mike Washington Jr., who had all the hype, right? Like he was still on the board. Broncos trade back. And like, all right, they're still going to get him. Nope. Tyler Onyedim. You're like, oh. So she was a little taken aback, but she goes on to say, I wasn't happy because all my guys went elsewhere. And then when I realized they were looking to the future, I loved it. We got quality players for our team, and most importantly, help for Bo Nix. I give it a B plus. Overall, super stoked. MHH for life. Yeah, if you look at it, Zach, 7 selections. 4 of them were on offense. 3 of them were what you would call weapons, although Dallin Bentley, Zach, the middle 7th round pick isn't exactly a potent weapon, so to speak, but skill position player. Him, right. Jolie, and of course, Jonah Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, they were never going to draft for the present, in my opinion, because they didn't have any needs in the present. They filled that with Jalen Waddle, and I guess the only need was JFM filling his shoes, and they did that with Tyler Onyedim. The rest was for the future. A lot of their draft picks as well, Chad, were team captains, so it looks like they were looking for quality players that can stand the test of time, that can develop within the system, and they can be patient with and hope to blossom into as a starter in the future. So, yeah, again, I think they knocked it out of the park for what they wanted to do. There were no home runs, although if we consider Jalen Waddle part of this draft, he was a home run. Yeah, I'm willing to go up to B+. If grades matter, I just can't give it an A yet. Well, time will tell ultimately.
And everything you just said, Zach, and you already mentioned it earlier in the stream, is exactly why great analysts who know their stuff, like Mel Kiper Jr., are missing the boat on this. And that is simply that you don't understand the roster makeup. Like he can maybe look at a depth chart and go, But I mean, George Payton telegraphed it to us a little over a week ago when he said, look, man, it's going to be hard for any rookie we draft to crack this starting lineup, let alone the roster, just because this is a 14-win team. They brought everybody back with only a couple of exceptions, JFM, PJ Locke, a couple practice squad guys like Mercedes Lewis. So that's what gets missed by some of the national takes on this is like, hey, you're looking for the guys who wow you as obvious candidates to be instant impact dudes. And you look at this Broncos draft class and you go, well, where's the instant impact? And you can't really point to anybody outside of maybe Jonah Coleman, but he's already starting out third on the depth chart. Tyler Onyedim, same thing. Third on the depth chart. Justin Jolie, same thing. Third on the depth chart. So that's what they miss. You're on the money here, Lady D. This was a draft that was absolutely about the future. And also, you got to keep in mind why that future is so important, having cost-controlled players in the pipeline, because Bo Nix about to get pricey.
Yes, sir. Great points. Yeah. And it was always going to be that way. And I don't even fault them for the Anya Dean pick because they let the board, again, I said this before, but they let the board fall to them. They had conviction on the player. And this is what I tried warning about and Chad tried warning about before the draft is they're going to take who they want. And Chad nailed this too. They're going to take someone who would fits the system, fits their, but we never heard of him really, or we weren't looking in that direction. That perfectly describes Tyler Onyedim. And then they got Jonah Coleman at tremendous value. He's going to contribute. All these players will contribute in year one. But the beauty of the Broncos roster makeup, and you nailed that point, Chad, is they don't need any of these players to contribute in year one because they have starters at every position. That's what the analysts do every year. And during the season, they look at box scores. They have surface level analysis, mostly to ding the Broncos. They don't ever look at the bigger picture. That's why pods like us are truly the best, huh?
Excellent points, my brother. And Lady D, once again, love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jana.
We have so much more, gang, that we're going to be getting to. But guys, listen up. NBA playoffs marches on. Underdog, the best place to get in on all that action. The Denver Nuggets, it's not looking good. They're down 3-1 with the T-Wolves, but you can still have fun watching basketball, win some picks, win some money. You're in luck. Here's how it goes. First things first, you just download the Underdog app. And then new customers, you're going to learn about this here in just a second. You'll score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. And Zach's going to explain to you how to do that.
Exactamundo, playing an Underdog is easy. Just pick players will go higher or lower on stats like points and rebounds. Get your picks correct, and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. Plus, there's new promos dropping daily in the app.
Underdog, guys, so much fun. Again, opportunity to watch basketball, watch any of these competitive pro sports and win money is an absolute slam dunk. So download the Underdog app. Log in using our promo code MHuddle to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Again, that's promo code MHuddle. Millions of fans have already won billions playing on Underdog. You got to ask yourself, will you be next?
18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right. We go back to the chat. We see what's on Phil's mind. Another awesome member of this community, a super supporter on Facebook saying, good evening, Chad and Zach. Gotta love this draft, he says. I think Red Murdoch was a steal. Based on who we drafted position-wise, who do you think won't be on the team in September? Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Zach, it's funny he should ask because I just wrote an article on this very subject, like published it 45 minutes ago. I'll list a couple, Zach, I'll let you throw some in. I mean, obviously, doesn't spell good things if your name is Jordan Jackson, the whatever he is, third, fourth year vet, who the Broncos have now brought back in back-to-back years on exclusive rights, free agent tenders. But Onyedim, sorry, but it's going to be hard for Jackson to crack it. I mean, running back, yesterday when they made the pick of Jonah Coleman, I was like, man, who does this impact more, Jalil or Tyler Bidet? And then Eric's like, dude, not even a question, Tyler Bidet. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
He goes, well, he's the third down guy. And because I wasn't thinking of Coleman, Zach, as a third down guy. I was thinking of him as a between the tackles guy. But because Coleman is such a good pass protector and a solid pass catcher out of the backfield, that little role that Sean Payton had carved out for Tyler Bidet, that's going to be taken now by Jonah Coleman. So I think it's ends up being those are your top 4 guys: Dobbins, Harvey, Coleman, McLaughlin for now.
Yeah, he's not the next RJ Harvey Coleman. He's the next JK Dobbins, and that's why I think he'll be RB1 before long. I mentioned Nick Gargiulo. Hopefully I nailed the pronunciation twice. He's probably on the way out, maybe with an injury designation or whatever. I don't think he's the future. Tight end, Lucas Kroll. I would be polishing up my resume if I were you and getting that correct, because they don't extremely have high confidence in him, Chad, if they're going to go out and draft Joe Lee. And then they made some moves in undrafted free agency as well. They also gave Troutman a 3-year deal, and they're retaining Evan Ingram. So I don't think it spells good news for him. We'll see what happens for Nate Adkins. Basically, everyone where the Broncos drafted already on the depth chart that was like on the bottom, they're on notice now. But those are the players that pop to mind immediately.
Yeah, well said. But Red Murdoch, he was a steal. And if you were in the live stream on YouTube when the Broncos were on the clock for the final pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, everyone on our side of the stream, in other words, all the MHH staffers were like, come on, Red Murdoch. And it was Red Murdoch. And why is he special? Well, he's a downhill thumper guy. He's extremely productive and prolific as just a see ball, get ball guy. And it just so happens that no defensive player has forced more fumbles in their FBS career ever than Red Murdoch. He exits the college ranks, guys, with 17 forced fumbles, which is the most in FBS history. And what's kind of cool and ironic is that the previous record holder for career forced fumbles in the FBS, Division I college football, was Khalil Mack, who also went to Buffalo. So he broke a fella alma mater guy record when he got that 17. So I'm stoked on Red Murdoch. And then last thing, Zach, and I'm throwing it back to you, Torian York, who they brought in, the Texas A&M linebacker, as a college free agent. This was a guy everybody had a draftable grade on. We're shocked. In fact, I've been told it came down to Murdoch or York. And the reason they went with Murdoch is they felt like it would have been harder they would have had more people competing for Murdoch than they would have with York on the college free agent side of things. But York ended up it came down to Detroit and Denver, and he chose the Broncos.
Well, we know Sternad and Singleton aren't going anywhere. You have to wonder what this means for Kareem Reed and Lavelle Bailey as the backups. Maybe there's training camp competition. I am happy the Broncos drafted a linebacker, although you could argue they should have drafted one earlier. Murdoch could be a steal. When I saw that, Chad, in his notes about the forced fumbles, I thought that was an error for sure. I looked it up, and it's legit. So, yeah, he's going to be a beast, I think, relatively speaking, as a late-round pick.
Yeah, well said. We got the Duchess jumping in, Michaela Parker, with the Top Rope Super Chat, and she's stoked on this draft. She says, I really loved our draft. All right, Michaela, that's good to hear. Now you got to tell us why. Drop some insight and tell us who your favorite pick. In fact, each and every one of you that's in the room with us tonight, drop a comment telling us who your favorite pick of this class was. Zach, do you have a favorite pick?
It's got to be Coleman, right? I mean, just the value they got on him, Chad. Again, we were talking about him potentially as a round 2 pick, and the Broncos got him just much later, and they just let him fall right into their laps. And he fits the offense perfectly. He's a 3-down back. Let me just say, if you get the Michaela Parker stamp of approval, that's a really, really good sign. She is not easy to impress, and I'm happy that you're happy. And just as you said, Chad, I want to know, was it Roy who gave the Broncos a D?
Yeah,
earlier?
Roy.
I want to know why. Was there any context to that, Chad? Or I want to know what his least favorite pick is, and I want some diversity in the comments. But easily, Jonah Coleman was the best pick, and I also love the draft, Michaela, as well. Thank you for that.
You'll have to let us know, Roy. I've scrolled so far past the initial comment that it'd be hard to find it now. But Roy, feel free to drop some knowledge in the chat.
Just curious.
But Michaela, I echo everything Zach said. Really, really stoked that you're stoked on this draft, and as always, we appreciate you as a Mount Rushmore superstar. Also checking in, look, we got D-Dub from Paradise. Top Rope, brother, thank you so much. I was actually thinking about you today because in my rambles on watching reels and stuff on YouTube at night when I'm trying to go to sleep, I kept the algorithm kept feeding me these reels on some show called Chief of War. And I was like, what is this? And it had Jason Momoa, Aquaman or Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones, as like in every scene. I'm like, what is this Chief of War? And it was all spoken in Hawaiian, and you had to read the subtitles, which I'm down for because I watch everything in subtitles. But anyway, I'm like, where is this show? Oh, it turns out it's on Apple TV, and I'm one of the great unwashed non-Apple users under the sun. So I'm like, can you get Apple TV without? Sure enough, you could. So I've been watching that show today, and I thought of you because it all takes place ancient Hawaii. It's a really great show, by the way, so far. So D-Dub, jumping in, brother. The Paytons stated their mid and late round strategy. Look for traits that translate, then coach and develop. They believe in their staff and ability to coach. Onyedim definitely has size and traits. Get stronger, get coached, and his length and first step will translate. Wisdom. Talk about dropping knowledge. Excellent points here, Zach.
Yeah, and the good thing is and first of all, thank you so much, Dale, for your support. We go way back around these parts, and you've been such a consistent, member for so long. Thank you for that, man, for real. The good thing is, though, they're not dropping Onyedim in a position where he has to be the number one guy right away, because they're probably going to make it like a 3 players equals 1 JFM. So you have Savion Jones, and he was a 3rd-round pick. We can all be happy about Onyedim if you are, but we also want to get some ROI on Savion Jones. He had 8 snaps total last season. So also Awuzurike is going to be thrown in the mix. They're just hoping the sum of their parts equals the presence that JFM gave them. And I also agree with you. He has the potential to blossom into that. They just don't have to rush the process if they don't want to. But again, Dale, thank you.
It's kind of interesting too, as he hits the room, Onyedim, he also, you talk about the first step, his length, how it translates. He's got a wicked spin move, maybe not as badass as Sylvester Williams back in the day. Remember him, guys? Super Bowl 50 hero, 2013 first-round pick. But my point that I was distracted, now I'm going to bring it back here, is so before he went to Texas A&M, Onyedim played at Iowa State in the same room as any Awuzurike. And they're not just former college teammates, they're buddies and like tight bros where they're in each other's weddings, so to speak, like, best man or in the wedding, whatever. He talked about that after he got drafted, Onyedim. So it's kind of cool, Zach, that they're going to be in the same room, at least for this season, because Awuzurike is entering a contract year. But that is who his prime competition is going to be to see in the playing field, because Savion Jones, I think he's going to be a part of this rotation, but has he developed enough to be a factor on first and second down relative to the run? Right. That I'm not so sure on, whereas Onyedim, day one, no problem.
That's a good point, and that's where they can use the 3=1 strategy. So on early downs, you can have the true run stoppers, and that's the good thing about Onyedim is right out of the box from day one, he's a pretty decent run stopper. He's a solid run stopper, as a matter of fact, and you can work with his pass rushing. And then on 3rd downs, you get him off the field, you put Savion Jones on the field. So they're going to be like a defensive end by committee, I think, in Denver, of which Onyedim will be a major integral component. Thank you again, Dale.
And here he is with the second super chat. Thank you, bro. Saying, doesn't Red Murdoch remind you of Vontaze Burfict of the Bengals, but without the baggage? Talk about production.
That'd be nice.
I see what you mean by that. And his production is absolutely off the charts. I was writing about it yesterday. His he spent 4 years at Buffalo, was a starter, main contributor, the final 3. He finished those 3 years with nearly 400 tackles. 40-something tackles for a loss. We already talked about the forced fumbles. He's just a force to be reckoned with.
If he could be even half of Vontaze Burfict, the non-flag producing, really controversial player. I mean, if you take away the penalties, and I know it's hard to do, you take away the baggage, he was a good football player, or at least he invoked the fear of God in your opponents, and that's what the Broncos could use more of, in my opinion, especially after losing Dre Greenlaw, one of the few dogs on the defense. So again, if he could be anything close to that, Dale, they got an absolute steal, although this is one of those random late-round players, or I know he's not undrafted, but like random late round undrafted players that's going to end up making the 53. It happened with Lavelle Bailey. It happened with Kareem Reed. I think it's going to happen with Murdoch.
By the way, it's really cool. He was asked after he got drafted yesterday, Red Murdoch did a little Zoom presser conference call, and he was asked, hey man, how did you produce the mind-boggling 17 forced fumbles? Quote, meticulous intent and being kind of obsessed with it. Now I'm just ready to go do that on the field and help us get some wins, close quote. So, if you go watch any of the tape on Red Murdoch, sometimes there are times he's so obsessed with trying to get the ball that you're like, no, just tackle him, dude. Get him. He's picking up extra yards because you're like trying to punch it out and his legs are churning. So there's a happy balance that he's going to have to learn to strike a little bit at the next level. But Zach, that instinct and that savvy, he's got it now. He knows how to get the ball out. It'll be harder, of course, to do so in the NFL. But dude, I'm really excited about him. And again, this speaks to the value thing. Like, I think, don't 100% quote me on this, Zach, but I think if I'm remembering right, Eric had a 5th round grade on Murdoch.
We could all be worried about the him going for the football too much until it's like late in the 4th quarter of the game and he just like peanut punches the ball out, and forces the fumble. That's what he's good at. And that translates over to the NFL level. Again, you're right, Chad. He can't be overzealous with it. He can't overcommit. He can't make that the central focus of his game. He has to develop around the edges. But if they can do that, they have maybe as of right now, a future starter on their hands, the potential replacement for Sternad or Singleton in the future. I like this pick a lot.
And just a cool name too, Red Murdoch. He just sounds like a guy in the trenches, seeing red, so to speak. But D-Dub, much love and respect, brother. Thank you. We march on here, and some hellos to folks, some of the members. Ronk, I want to get in on some Ronk here. He says, before Jonah Coleman got drafted, he was practicing going to a podium and reading a card that said, with the 62nd pick in the 2nd round of the 2026 NFL draft, the Broncos select Jonah Coleman. It's so cool. I posted about this today on X. Like, go find Jonah Coleman's Twitter account and follow him, because he actually posts quite a lot of stuff. He's a fun follow, and especially to see some of his draft stuff. And he was so stoked. He had to wait a little bit longer, but he did manifest it, Zach. Like, I mean, he knew he had a connection. A lot of these prospects, Zach, they go on, they meet with scouts at the, all-star games. They meet with them at the combine, their pro days. And then in some cases, right, they get invited for top 30 visits. All of that stuff was Jonah Coleman. And in those meetings with the Broncos, he had a feeling. He said, that he felt like there was a connection there with the Broncos. But even then, there's 31 other teams, and that gets multiplied and compounded by the number of picks in each round. So there's no way to know. I got this connection with the Broncos, and man, I'd love to land there. But he tried to manifest it, and it worked. It worked for him.
Yeah, the power of putting something out in the universe and hoping it comes back to you, and it came back to Jonah Coleman with gusto for sure. And that's what's so attractive about him as a player, is that you can play him on 1st, 2nd, or 3rd down, ideally once he develops a little bit, because he has all 3 traits. He can run, he can catch, and he can pass protect. He is what the Broncos have needed, and they weren't getting that with RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey will have a role in the future. He's a good niche kind of player to have, a 3rd down back, pass catching back, whatever. But Coleman can be the future RB1. And again, not saying it's week 1, but I think he will be before long.
And Black says, my favorite part of the draft was watching it with all my friends here at MHH. Dude, you're a sweetheart. Thanks, buddy. We did have some fun. And I got to tell you, Zach, that because I knew that Nick was going to be a little bit less available in this particular draft because of stuff that was going on with his wife and being out of town. Or, he was on dad duty, as everybody knows who was watching the streams. So I ended up spending a lot more time on these live streams than I have in recent years. And it was a lot of work in terms of, doing that and then writing stuff and then editing stuff. But it was a lot of fun too. And just like learning way more about the class. Because as you guys know, I mean, what Zach and I know about the depth of these draft classes pales in comparison to the work and the study and the knowledge that guys like Eric and Nick and Carl and Lance have. So I'm sitting there just like you guys, listening. I have my takes and everything, but listening to these guys talk about the prospects, just learning so much. It was a blast. But we get down here to the Papa Bear, David McElrath checking in. What's going on, big dog? He says, good evening, Broncos country. # God bless the USA. Draft, here's his grade, A+. The current and future team, Zach, he says, is outstanding.
I can't hate on you, David, for being optimistic and having confidence in the future. The future is extremely bright for the Broncos, and I thought that before the draft. I mean, really, no matter what they could have done, Chad, after trading for Jalen Waddle, for the most part, was going to wow me or really change my mind, either for better or for worse. I am extremely bullish on the Broncos for 2026, and I think they are ready to win a Super Bowl today. Thank you for that, David.
We'll see you tomorrow night, Papa Bear, for the first Superstar segment of the 2026 offseason. Zach, real quick before we grab Lady D, you asked, Roy answered. Here's why he gave it a D grade. The third round pick isn't the greatest, meaning Onyedim. I like the Coleman and Jolie picks. I'm not a fan of Cage Casey. So there you have it, Zach.
But I feel like Roy, and I'm not trying to make it a super big argument. It's not that deep. But I feel like you liking the Coleman and Jolie picks would make the grade on that basis alone a little higher than a D plus or whatever you gave it, a D grade. Again, you can have apprehensions about Anya Deem if that's who you're talking about. I do too, or at least overdrafting or FOMO or whatever. But he fits the defense. They needed a defensive end to replace JFM. And again, you like Coleman, you like Jolie. Casey was not drafted for today. He's drafted for the future. And they made some also great late round additions like Red Murdoch. You can have your grade. I just think it's I don't agree.
I'm just trying to remember real quick, and then we're going to Lady D. Who was still? I got to remind myself who was still on the board at 66. So when the Broncos took Onyedim, here's a few of the names that were still on the board that people might recognize. Obviously, Washington was still on the board, but he fell, Zach. He fell far. Markel Bell, the big offensive tackle from Miami, who I loved at the Senior Bowl. Sam Roush, the Stanford tight end. We ended up getting a very similar player in Dallin Bentley in the 7th round. Takario Davis, a very good corner out of Washington, was still on the board. My guy, Oscar Delp. Would I have preferred the Broncos gone Oscar Delp there? As you guys know, yes, I would have preferred that. And then maybe you don't go with Bentley in the 7th, or maybe even you don't go with Jolie in the 4th if you do, or in the 5th if you take Delp in the 2nd round. But I still don't hate the Onyedim pick. Oscar Delp, Zach Malachi Fields, the big wide receiver from Notre Dame. We could continue. AJ Hulsey, the LSU safety people will recognize. Jacoby Lane, the USC receiver, who was very impressive at the Senior Bowl. I could go on. There were some other names that gave me some FOMO. But at the end of the day, Zach, I think when people look back on this 3rd round, I have a sneaking suspicion that Tyler Onyedim will be viewed as one of the better value picks in this class.
I do as well, and Roy kind of doubled down saying I didn't want Onyedim way overdrafted. I don't care what anyone says, and he might be overdrafted, but here's the thing, Roy. If he even reaches 75% of the potential, we're not going to care where he was drafted, whether it was a few picks too late, whether it was a round too late. If he becomes a good player, that's all that matters, and he doesn't have the pressure to be the guy, the man. From week 1, they have Savion Jones and they have Uwuzurike. I'm not. Again, I give it like a C, but I give the overall Broncos draft class somewhere in the B plus range. But we can all have our opinions. That's absolutely fine.
You know, one of the biggest surprises of this draft to me, I mean, people talk about Ty Simpson going in round 1 and where he went to the Rams. But honestly, one of the biggest surprises, and I was fist pumping when it happened, was when Kalon Black, the Indiana running back, who was not invited to the NFL scouting combine, Zach, ends up being the 3rd running back drafted in this class before Washington, before Coleman. It ends up going Love early, Price at the end of 1st round, then Black, then Coleman. Gosh, was Washington? I think Emmett Johnson was drafted before Washington, wasn't he? Either way, just kind of crazy. Let's see what's on Lady D's mind. Jumping in again. Love you so much.
Thank you, Deanna.
Talk about helping us keep the lights on, ladies. Thank you so much. Deanna says, I loved the Red Murdoch pick. He's going to be a steal. Her favorite pick, she says, was Coleman, like you, Zach. She says, my husband's team, the Dolphins, took my guy, Jacob Rodriguez. David said, that's her husband. He was glad he wasn't home. I realized the draft was for the future, and then I was okay. It was a fun day 3 for me and David. Yeah, that's cool. It was interesting that George Payton, Zach, yesterday in his, they held little press conferences after each day of the draft. And George Payton, let me find this real quick. He, in talking about Red Murdoch, was it here? Yeah, it's right here. He said, quote, Then Red Murdoch, he's a tackling machine, just really instinctive, really good against the run. He may hold the record, you guys may know, for forced fumbles. Yeah, George, he does. Everyone, he says, talked about the Texas Tech guy. That's, of course, Rodriguez, who went to the Dolphins. And he was amazing. But this guy, oh my gosh, if you look at his career and all the forced fumbles he had, just a nose for the ball, relentless motor. I think he could be a good special teamer too. And then he goes on, Zach, last thing to say, a great makeup. All these guys, I think, have a great makeup, close quote. So when they say great makeup, that's a code word for just like intangibles, the intangible skill set, the culture fit, football IQ, love of football, all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, their character, their intelligence, how cerebral they are, how much of a team player they are, how much they love the game and love the team and everything. So they look for quality over quantity. We can't fault them for that. They've also had tremendous success. George Payton has finding late round gems, finding undrafted gems. There's always one every year, Deanna. And as I said earlier, I think this year it could be Red Murdoch. It could be Dallin Bentley, but I think it will be Murdoch because the path to playing time. I mean, if he beats out Bailey, Chad, and beats out Reed or one of them, he's a few snaps away from being a starter or getting significant snaps. So I think he could walk on to the 53 and we'll go from there. But Deanna, give a shout out to David. Tell him I said what's up. And we appreciate him despite him being a Dolphins fan. We're going to have to convert him one of these days.
Right on. Thank you, Lady D. Much love and respect. D-Dubs jumping in to
Thank you, Dale.
to quantify, says, people said Vontaze Burfict was too stiff, which is one of the critiques of Red Murdoch. One of the reasons he fell in the draft. Also, he ran a relatively slow for the position 40 time. I'm trying to remember. It was like a 4.67 or something. Not super slow. It's not like if me or Zach were out there running the 40, but a little bit slower than you'd want to see for a linebacker. But his point here is Burfict. They said that he was too stiff as well. He went undrafted. And yeah, Burfict, undrafted, Arizona State, I want to say, if I remember right, goes on to have a Pro Bowl career, a lot of run-ins with the NFL because of some dirty play and stuff and whatnot. But his college production, it was solid. It was, 3 seasons. I'd pull it up right now here for you. Just, I know you're talking more about traits, obviously here, but production-wise, in 3 years, Zach, at Arizona State, Vontaze Burfict had 228 total tackles. Red Murdoch blows that out of the water, dude. Out of the water, just for and 4 forced fumbles, by the way. Red Murdoch had 358 over his final 3 seasons. He had 40 tackles for a loss, 9 sacks, only 1 pick, but 17 forced fumbles. So anyway, we get your point. And the fact that Burfict went undrafted, had the career, Murdoch, we shall see.
Yeah, not to make this a Burfict podcast, but here's his problem back in the day is that he was born about 20 years too late. If he would have played in the NFL 20 years sooner, he would have been one of the top stars and maybe like a future Hall of Famer back when the rules were a little more relaxed, back when those cheap shots, those questionable hits, they were the referees looked the other way. He started to come into the NFL and came up when the NFL was cracking down on that stuff. And did he go overboard a few times? Yeah. I personally like a player like that. It's a very old school throwback. Bill Romanowski, Def Wu kind of players. I like those guys. I was a fan of Vontaze Burfict. And again, Dale, if Red Murdoch can be even half of that, definite steal. Thank you for another super, though.
You the man, brother. Appreciate you so much. We also have here an excellent points. Westful Worldwide jumping in saying, why don't the Broncos play LaVell Bailey, who was, of course, Zach, a college free agent in 2024, made the roster initially out of camp, saw a little bit of playing time, but then he was basically replaced in 2025 on the roster by Karine Reed, who also in 2025 was a college free agent out of Utah. LaVell Bailey seems to, Zach, he ended up being promoted to the 53 a little bit later in the season, if memory serves, but he didn't see any action. Why does he seem to have perhaps fallen out of favor?
On a macro level, it's because Vance Joseph, and I've said this before, he really doesn't have the greatest eye for scouting inside linebacker talent. He just doesn't. If you explore his history and things like that, I'm not going to make it a VJ rant. But it's weird and eerie, Chad, that LaVale Bailey and Kareem Reed followed almost the same trajectory as rookies. They had standout summers, preseason standouts, preseason game-changing plays. They made the 53, and then they got no chance after that, really. They just kind of were like buried in mothballs after that for the most part. We thought they would be bigger components of the Broncos defensive rotation. I don't know. I guess it's good for Bailey that they released Dre Greenlaw. They re-signed Singleton and Sternad, but then you draft Red Murdoch. It's going to be an open competition. And I wouldn't be surprised, like I said earlier, if Murdoch leapfrogs not only Bailey, but Kareem A. Reed, who they're also similarly down on, Chad, on the surface anyway.
Good question, buddy. We've got the Duchess jumping in off the tippity top rope. Thank you, a massive mega super chat. Love you so much, Michaela.
Thank you.
She says, I loved in order Coleman. He'll be a running back one before long. Red Murdoch, funny fact, his real name is Khalil, like Khalil Mack. Went to the same school as well. Jolie will be a stud. He is also a willing blocker, even if he does need work on it. Love the Cage Casey pick. He has short arms, but he will be a stud at guard. And yes, we got a Bentley. That's what she texted me when they made that pick yesterday. Pick 256, Bentley. She goes, we got a Bentley. So we're rolling, rolling large. We're living large with a Bentley. But yeah, he's, the Broncos like Utah players for whatever reason. They like the program. They like the fact that I think they play at altitude like all the Colorado schools do. So for whatever reason, Zach, there's more of a pipeline from the University of Utah to the Broncos than even CU or CSU or even Air Force.
And that's a great point by Michaela here about Casey. You wonder if he's going to play tackle. We had a question earlier about replacing Garrett Bowles, the successor to Bowles. And for that reason, and Chad said earlier, he's more likely going inside where he'll replace, hopefully, God willing, in the future, Ben Powers at left guard and not tackle over there for Garrett Bowles. Great point, Michaela. And I think he could develop into a stud because they have had success with players like Frank Crum, players like Palsho. Zach Strief does a good job. Sean Payton does a good job with linemen historically. I like that pick. They had micro holes, like micro cavities, and they filled each and every single one of those in. And now they have a clean bill of health, so to speak, going into 2026. Thank you for that magnificent super chat. Your amazing show of support as always. We love you around here, Michaela. Thank you.
On the subject of Jolie and blocking, one of the things I remember Eric saying about him yesterday is at his size, so he's 6'3.5", 241 pounds, that he's a competent blocker as a move blocker and blocking from the slot, but, as a guy who would put his hand in the dirt like they asked Adam Troutman to do, in line at the Y, blocks at the edge, etc., that obviously he'll still need some work there, but that his size and his frame, he'd need to build up his NFL body a little bit to be more effective in that spot, and that he's got the room on his frame to do so. So just a little extra insight. And as always, Michaela, thank you for dropping knowledge. Great stuff. And real quick, I just want to mention this. Cage Casey, also a guy playing at, from we'll call it the Rocky Mountain West, from Rocky Mountain region, from Boise State. So really cool stuff, Michaela. Much love and respect, my friend. Okay, Zach, where are we at? 48 minutes. Burning topics, burning questions, get them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to them before we dip. Let's do some rapid fire here, Zach. Try and get to as many folks as possible. Tucson Phil says, guys, do you think we bring in a veteran before training camp? Are there any other positions, Zach, you could see that happening?
I mean, that's kind of a vague question. There are certain areas. I don't know about quarterback, for example. I think, Phil, you've asked about Jared Stidham replacing him. I think he's fairly safe, although Sam Ehlinger will push him. Maybe defensive end, Chad, if they're down on Savion Jones or Anya Deem, or if they just want some insurance to replace another veteran in JFM, it could be there. I don't know, though, without getting closer to training camp, although if we had to bet probability-wise, they will after June 1st. Maybe Cam Jordan.
It was a little bit of a surprise they didn't add a quarterback, not necessarily in the draft, but college free agent. No, they didn't. Kind of interesting. Yeah. George on Facebook says, what a great draft, and the team of MHH held the best pod. Thanks to all of you. Broncos for life, MHH for life. And guys, right here, what George is saying, we got a
Hit
lot
those
of you in
thumbs
the
up.
room right now on YouTube and Facebook. Do us a solid. Hit that thumbs up. Hit the like button. Smash it. Helps us for the algorithm, guys. Love you. Zach, we got Drew jumping in. What's going on, big dog?
Thank you, Drew.
Says I joined late, so maybe I missed it. But let's not forget the undrafted free agent, Torian York, linebacker, Texas A&M. I've read, he says, in multiple places, he's the smartest inside linebacker since Luke Kuechly. Now, if his size could hold up, but why not Danny T? Why not Danny Trevathan worked? Yeah, he's again, draftable guy that they signed as a college free agent. So again, you look at this linebacker depth chart. They moved Drew Sanders to the outside. Top two guys set in stone, Alex Singleton, Justin Sternad. It looks as if they expect Jonah Ellis to get up to speed pretty quick and be that third linebacker on the field. You got to, at this stage, in my opinion, Zach, probably earmark that fourth spot and the last for sure roster spot to Red Murdoch. But I'm telling you, York's going to be a factor. He's a very talented player, very smart, as Drew points out here. Yep. So if your name is Lavelle Bailey, Jordan Turner, Karine Reed, you're feeling a little less secure in your place with the Denver Broncos. And all I can say to those guys, and they don't need to hear it from me, they know, but you better bring your lunch pail this summer because it's going to be a battle.
And I welcome it. I hope the Broncos do as well. May the best man win the jobs, starting jobs and backup jobs. And I don't care who that best man is or where they drafted him, where they picked him up. If it's York, so be it. He should be on the field. That's what I think it was Sean Payton talked about, Chad, that he wants his best players on the field at all times. It's a very obvious point, but it could be an illuminating point if in this position, historically where the Broncos have struggled, they can have someone break out, whether it's Murdoch, whether it's York, or whether it's, to their credit, Jordan Turner, or the other ones, Lavelle Bailey or Karine Reed. This is what I like. Iron is going to sharpen iron at inside linebacker, and it's a good shout bringing up York here. Thank you.
Hey, we love you too, Furman fam. Much love and respect. Let's see here. All right. Our dear buddy Glenn, big-time draft nerd, in the best sense. You know what I mean by that? Like, this guy knows a lot more about the draft than the average fan in the NFL. I'll tell you that. But he says here, Zach, very good draft for the Broncos. Loads of upside, developmental players that have instant traits to improve the roster. First round, while I understand and are happy with the picks, drove me absolutely crazy. I still would love Cam Jordan to come in post-June. Hashtag MHH for life, state of being. Yeah, I've kind of written off Cam Jordan, Zach, as a viable option now, because here's what you got to realize. Not only did they bring in Tyler Onyedim, but as I mentioned, they brought back Jordan Jackson on an ERFA, so he's going to compete. They also re-signed Matt Henningsen, who missed all of last season. He's a former 6th-round pick of George Payton's, by the way. Missed all of last season in a contract year. What a bummer. You're going into your contract year looking to try and like make a name for yourself, either for the Broncos to get a new contract or with another team, and you have an Achilles before you even get to the regular season. But they brought him back. I don't think you need Cam Jordan, honestly. Now, if they wouldn't have drafted Onyedim where they did, or Onyedim period, if they wouldn't have drafted, maybe it'd still be a topic. But I think that ship may have sailed, Zach.
Not only did they draft him, but they traded down specifically, for the reason that he's going to be there. They really wanted Onyedim, like it or hate it. They really wanted him there. And I feel like, knowing Sean Payton with how he dealt with former Saints players, he would have pounced on the chance to get Cam Jordan sooner. I know the draft, the compensation and all that for next year, the comp pick formula was in the discussions. I just feel like we would have heard more mutual interest between Cam Jordan and the Broncos if things were trending in that direction. I'm with you, Chad. I don't think it's very likely, although I'd love to be surprised. I really would.
Pearl says, by the way, I changed my profile picture. This was taken last week. Me at age 78 on Indy. My beautiful girl, age 18, her horse. Absolutely gorgeous. Really cool to see, Pearl. Great to have you with us. Let's see. Storm Bless says, yeah, I can't see Jordan being a Bronco unless someone were to get injured. Yeah, good point, buddy. Injury would change some things. Zach, I'm going to grab a few. In fact, let's do this. We'll go through the messages, the final episode messages while Zach's going through that. I'm going to go through and star a few of the member comments and some other stuff. We'll get to them before we leave. We still got a little time.
Another tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. They took away the. It's not
That was
Carl
my
Dummler.
fault.
You can
That was my
follow the.
fault.
No, it's all good. You can follow the main account at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so, follow us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. You can join us on the MHH Discord server. The link is in the description below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
All right, guys. Before we dip on out of here, I have some comments I want to get to here from folks who've been very patient. First of all, let me scroll down here and find them. Rowdy says, with the next wave of free agency coming, I initially thought we'd be signing a D lineman like Cam Jordan, maybe Njoku at tight end. I think both those ships have clearly sailed. You drafted 2 tight ends too. So Chad saw your SI article, kind of agree. Not sure there's much room. Yeah, there's not. As far as the free agents, that was I think that was Bob Morris wrote that article. But let's see. String guy Raj says, I love the fact Sean Payton fooled everyone with his draft picks. Trying to read Sean Payton's mind is a tough book to read. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he really fooled anybody, but like he's certainly didn't tip his hand much, Zach, other than the makeup thing and the vision thing, which you can see clearly in each one of these guys that was drafted.
Although, I mean, they drafted a lot of players they had on top 30 visits. I don't know how much you guys read into that, but I think Sean Payton has actually been pretty honest with us so far. If you follow the press conferences and all the quotes like we have and all the developments this offseason, he's told you basically where he's going to go. We're not going to reach for anyone. We're letting the board fall to us. He emphasized the trenches, offensive and defensive linemen. The Broncos drafted both. I got to give him credit. He's not been deceitful. And you add into that as well, Chad, the Davis Webb transition. I give Payton credit for being reflective and pragmatic this offseason.
Yeah, well said. Jordan Lewis says, yeah, just 2 years ago, we had the worst roster. Love the future and the culture of this team. Well said, brother. Boy, oh boy, have the Broncos come a long way. And they've come a long way because of great personnel decisions and great coaching, honestly, draft and free agency. Kurt on Facebook says, my favorite picks were Coleman and Jolie. I'm glad the Broncos got a good pass-catching tight end. Yep, they're ready for life after Evan Ingram, that's for sure. He says, I was really pulling for tight end Max Clare from Ohio State to be available, but the Rams snatched him at pick 61 right before the Broncos were supposed to pick at 62. And that was part of my point I was trying to make earlier is if you look at those 10 picks, Zach, right before 62, I mean, so many of the names that we were holding on to, like I'll just list a few of them. C.J. Allen, Eli Stowers, Nate Borkacher went really high, the blocking tight end from Texas A&M at 56. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety. Also, Marlon Klein, the tight end, went really high from Michigan to Houston. But Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker, Max Clare. And that's when the Broncos said, all right, we're trading back, et cetera. So excellent point, dude. Also, we got Kathy jumping in from across the pond, Germany, if memory serves. She says, hey, guys, loved our draft picks. Coleman, Casey, the other guys. But Miles Scott, the 7th round safety / defensive back, is my favorite pick of them all, Zach.
Yeah, he definitely has some athletic upside for sure. You needed a safety to replace PJ Locke. You don't need a starter. You have 2 already. You needed just a guy that can be in the pipeline, can build his way up the system, and maybe develop into a future starter. That's Miles Scott. Again, that was the Broncos' mindset throughout the entire draft. They held firm to it. They didn't panic. They didn't chase any sort of FOMO type moves. I just it's hard to not give them anything less than a B or B+.
No doubt about it. I'm really excited about this draft class and just what kind of flexibility it gives this team for the future. And by the way, if you guys didn't know, Miles Scott, Illinois, well, he started out same class as Pat Bryant as a wide receiver in the wide receiver room, and then eventually transitioned to safety and defensive back for the Fighting Illini. So these two are close buddies, and now they're on the same team. Still different positions now, but they started out together as wide receivers at Illinois, which is really, really cool. Some of the ties, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Onyedim being buddies with Uwazurike and all that stuff is really cool. But guys, before we dip out of here, a mile high salute, a special shout out to all the great Super Chat superstars, supporters, all the dear members helping us keep the lights on tonight. Like, I'm just going to go through in order here, like the Papa Bear, David McElrath. Oh, we missed David Youngkin. Addition of Waddle. You have to give the draft, he says, an A+. David, I'm so sorry we missed you early, dude. I don't know how that happened, but brother, thank you for the Super Chat. And Zach, that's true. You got, I mean, it's not necessarily in the strictest sense, but if you really want to take the macro look at this draft class, got to factor in Waddle in your grade.
Yeah, it's a little, I don't know. I separate them. The Waddle move was an A+. The draft itself, again, was, I'll say B+. So I understand what you're saying in spirit, but technicality wise, I view them separately, although I like them both.
Tommy Strickland became a member today. Shout out,
Tommy.
brother. Thank you for that. Eric Holt, Shannon Mills, Deanna Hendry, the Lady D, Tucson Phil, Michaela with several mega supers, D-Dub, several supers, legends, all these folks. Papa Bear, wait a second. Yeah, he dropped 2. So we missed the 2 at the top. That was Papa Bear's first one, was this one. It wasn't showing on our end for some reason, but it's showing in the starred bucket. So that's really weird, guys. Sorry to make you wait like that. Westful Worldwide. Let's see. Drew, George. We got Kenny jumping in here. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that super chat, big dog. And then here's a bigger one. He says, I'm going to be fair and give the Broncos draft a C. Broncos should have traded up in the first round for talent. McNeil Warren, CJ Allen, Hill Jr., and Eli Stowers were all there at 52, meaning they should have traded up. If you're not going to trade up, he's saying in round 1, fine. But some of these names that went that I listed here just a few minutes ago, right before they were on the clock, they should have traded up to get him, he's saying. Big shout out to my fellas, Roy, Glenn, Phil, and Ronk. Dude, cool, Kenny. Thank you, pal, for that super chat, Zach.
Yeah, Kenny, thank you so much. Personally, it's hard for me to fault the Broncos for what they didn't do. It's easier to criticize them for what they did do. Like, they did draft Tyler Onyedim. You can argue they overdrafted him, but look at just the things on a 1v1 level. C, it's still better than Roy's grade of D, but again, if you look at what the Broncos were trying to do, the players they got, the value they got, I'd be hard-pressed to give them anything less than a B, but we appreciate your super. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we are out of here for tonight, but Zach and I will be back in the saddle tomorrow. More of the draft aftermath continuing throughout the coming week. So looking forward to seeing you guys then.
Have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much for another amazing show, everyone. We will see you tomorrow. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.